Snow fell in relentless sheets over Chicago that December night in 2025, draping the city in a deceptive calm. The wind howled along Lakeshore Drive, rattling the windows of high-rises and stinging any exposed skin. At 44, Ethan Caldwell stepped out of a gleaming office tower on Wacker Drive, his mind knotted from a marathon board meeting that had dragged past midnight. As the CEO of a fintech giant, Ethan was a name whispered in boardrooms, ruthless in strategy, untouchable in demeanor, a man who thrived on control. Tonight, though, the weight of corporate chess moves clung to him like the damp chill. He waved off his driver, needing the bite of winter air to untangle his thoughts. The Loop's holiday lights flickered, casting a festive glow over Michigan Avenue. But Ethan veered onto a quieter street, his Italian leather shoes sinking into fresh snow. The city's heartbeat faded, replaced by the crunch of his steps and the distant wail of an ambulance. Under a stuttering street lamp at a deserted bus stop, a small shape caught his eye. A child, curled on a metal bench, barely sheltered by a threadbare jacket too big for her frame. She was no older than 5, her thin cotton dress a cruel joke against the sub-zero cold. Her cheeks were raw, her lips faintly blue, her breath shallow but visible in the frigid air. Ethan stopped, his pulse quickening. A jolt of alarm cut through the fog of his polished world. He crouched beside the bench, his voice low, almost lost in the wind. "Hey, kid, you okay? It's way too cold out here. Where's your family?" The girl stirred, her eyes cracking open, deep brown, startlingly clear, and unnervingly calm. She looked at him not with fear but with a quiet certainty, as if she'd been waiting. "My mom's finding dinner," she said, her voice small but steady, like a candle in a storm. "She come back. Are you the one who's here to fix things?" The word fix landed like a fist in Ethan's gut. He wasn't a hero, just a man in a $3,000 coat who'd stumbled across a child in peril. Yet her trust unearned, unguarded, stood a long-buried ache. "I don't know about fixing anything," he said, forcing a half-smile, "but I'm not leaving you out here. What's your name?" "Sophia," she replied, shifting to sit up. She clutched a frayed backpack and pulled out a crumpled photo, its edges worn soft. "This is my mom. She said she'd be back before the snow buries my shoes." Ethan glanced at Sophia's sneakers, already half covered in white. His throat tightened. Without a word, he shrugged off his wool coat and draped it over her. She sank into it, her tiny frame swallowed by the fabric, her sigh almost audible. "It's like a blanket," she murmured, burrowing deeper. "Warm like hot cocoa." Ethan sat beside her, the bench's icy metal biting through his suit. "You said I'm here to fix things," he said after a pause. "Why'd you think that?" Sophia tilted her head, her eyes steady. "Mom says sometimes people show up right when you're out of hope, like they're sent." Her words hung in the air, simple yet piercing, slicing through the armor Ethan had spent decades forging. In his world, faith was a liability, results were king. Yet this child's quiet conviction shook him, stirring memories of a softer time, his mother's voice, her gentle hands. A life before ambition hardened him. He didn't know how to answer, so he stayed silent, watching the snow pile up. Minutes bled into what felt like hours, the cold gnawing at his uncovered arms. Sophia seemed to ease beside him, her small body relaxing if his presence warmed the bench. "Do you really think I'm here for a reason?" he asked finally, his voice barely carrying over the wind. She nodded, her expression solemn. "You're here now. That's the start." For the first time in years, Ethan felt exposed to the elements, but to a truth he'd long suppressed, that simply being present could matter more than any deal he'd ever closed. Nora adjusted her scarf as she hurried through an alley near a soup kitchen in Pilsen, her boots slipping on slick pavement. The paper bag she carried held to plastic containers of lentil soup and a stale baguette. It all its meal for her and Sophia. At 32, Nora bore the scars of a life appended. Once a line cook at a bustling diner in Logan Square, she dreamed of opening her own cafe, her hands deft with spices and her heart full of recipes. The pandemic had shuttered the diner, and with it, her stability. Eviction followed, then homelessness, each loss carving away her hopes until only one remained, keeping Sophia safe. She'd chosen the bus stop with Carranera Fire Station, under a security camera, with a shelter a block away for emergencies. But tonight, the soup kitchen had been chaos, the line stretching into the street, volunteers overwhelmed. She'd waited over an hour, her stomach twisting with guilt for leaving Sophia so long. Her pulse spiked as she neared the bus stop, its faint light cutting through the blizzard. Then she stopped dead. A man sat beside Sophia, his coat wrapped around her daughter's shoulders. He was leaning close, speaking softly, his voice a low murmur. Nora's blood turned to ice. She dropped the bag, soup spilling into the snow, and ran, her voice sharp with fear. Sophia. She scooped her daughter into her arms, clutching her tightly, her body a shield. The man stood quickly, hands raised, his face calm but alert. "I'm not here to hurt her," he said, his tone even. She was alone, freezing. "I stayed until you got back." Nora's eyes raked over him, clean-shaven, expensively dressed, but a stranger. "You don't get to sit with my kid just because she's cold," she snapped, her arms tightening around Sophia. "I didn't touch her," he said, his voice steady. "I gave her my coat and waited. She said you were coming." Sophia stirred, her voice sleepy but bright. "Mom, he's okay. He kept me warm, like a big blanket." Nora looked down. Sophia's cheeks were flushed, not pale. Her shivers had stopped. Still, Nora's defenses held firm. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Ethan," he replied. "I was just walking by." He made no move to reclaim his coat, standing in his suit as snow dusted his shoulders. Nora studied him. His eyes were tired, not threatening, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. "You can leave," she said, her voice flat. "But the coat, keep it for her tonight." Ethan nodded. "I'll stay a bit, if that's okay, just to make sure you're both safe." Nora hesitated, then sat on the bench, Sophia in her lap. Ethan kept his distance, settling at the far end. The snow fell in silence, the city's harshness momentarily suspended. After a long pause, Nora spoke, her voice softer but still guarded. "We stay here sometimes. It's safer than most spots." Ethan nodded, not prying. "Sophia mentioned that." Nora glanced at him. "You really just sat with her?" He met her eyes. "No kid should be out here alone." For the first time in months, Nora felt a flicker of relief, not trust, but a crack in her armor. She looked away, holding Sophia closer, and the three sat in the quiet, the storm swirling around them. Nora's arms remained a fortress around Sophia, her body braced against the world. Ethan, a few feet away, didn't push for talk. His presence was steady, like a buoy in rough seas. Snow piled up, the street lamps glow softening the night's edges. Finally, Nora broke the silence. "Thanks," she said, her voice cautious, "for staying." Ethan gave a small nod. "No need to thank me. I couldn't walk away." Nora's gaze dropped to Sophia, now dozing against her. "Kindness always has a price," she said quietly. "I've learned that." Ethan tilted his head, considering her words. "Not always." Nora didn't reply, her silence thick with doubt. After a moment, Ethan spoke again. "I'm staying at a hotel nearby. It's warm, safe. You and Sophia could stay there tonight. No strings." Nora's eyes narrowed. "And tomorrow? A bill we can't pay? Or something else we owe you?" Ethan didn't flinch. "You'd owe me nothing. I'd cover it." Nora let out a bitter laugh, soft but sharp. "Nothing's free." He looked at his hands, then back at her. "You're right to be careful. There's a motel a few blocks away, cheap. No frills. I'll pay for a night. No names. You decide what's next." Nora studied him, searching for cracks in his calm. "Why do this?" she asked. Ethan met her gaze. "Because I can. And because it's right." His answer was stark, disarming. After a long pause, she nodded. "Just for tonight." Ethan stood, waiting as Nora lifted Sophia, still wrapped in his coat. They walked the 4 blocks, in near silence, the city's lights dimmed by the storm. At the motel, Ethan dealt with the clerk quietly, ensuring anonymity. He handed Nora the key. "You'll be okay here," he said. She nodded, her voice softer. "Thank you." As Ethan turned to leave, Sophia's small hand tugged his sleeve. "Will you come back tomorrow?" she asked, her eyes wide. "I have a story about a star to tell you." Ethan crouched, his chest tightening. "I'll try," he said. "I want to hear it." Sophia grinned, then scampered to Nora. Ethan stepped into the snow, the city glittering under a fresh white veil. 4 years. His life had been a machinedials, profits, control. Tonight, something else had stirred, a pulse he couldn't name. He wasn't ready to let it fade. The next morning, Ethan sat in his office, the Chicago River glinting beyond the glass. His coffee sat cold, his mind far from the earnings reports on his desk. He couldn't shake Sophia's trust, Nora's guarded strength. He called his assistant, Lauren, his voice low. "I need background," discreetly. "A woman named Nora, early 30s, has a daughter, Sophia, likely worked in restaurants. No police, nothing heavy, just who she is." Lauren, sharp and unquestioning, delivered a file by noon. Nora Sullivan, 32, former line cook at a Logan Square diner. Closed in 2020. No criminal record, 1 eviction, no current address. She frequented soup kitchens in the Loop and Pilsen. A life of grit, undone by fate. Ethan closed the file, his jaw tight. That evening, he found himself at a community kitchen, his company quietly funded in Pilsen, standing outside the steamed-up windows. Inside, Nora worked with focus, her hair in a loose bun, a too large sweater slipping off one shoulder. She diced carrots, stirred a pot of stew, and served each person in line with a nod or a quiet word. Her grace wasn't in her knife skills, but in her humanity. Saw people, even when they hid their faces. Ethan stepped inside, startling her as she sipped tea in a corner. "Sorry," he said. "Didn't mean to barge in." Nora set her cup down, her expression wary. "What are you doing here?" he shrugged. "I help fund this place, low-key. Wanted to see it at work." She raised an eyebrow, and he hesitated, then said, "You're good at this." Nora's gaze softened slightly. "I used to cook for a living." Before it all fell apart, Ethan nodded. "I could help. A stipend, make it official. Something steady." She shook her head. "I don't take handouts." "It's not a handout," he said. "It's seeing what you're worth." Nora studied him, then nodded. "Fine, but I work my way." That night, she stayed late, prepping for tomorrow. Ethan lingered, pretending to check emails, but watching her move through the kitchen with quiet command. It was calming, like watching order rise from chaos. As she left, he followed at a distance, curious. Nora didn't head to the motel. She walked 3 blocks, stopping beside an older woman slumped against a dumpster, shivering under a tarp. Nora knelt, whispered something, and handed her a container of stew. Then, without pause, she slipped off her gloves and tucked them into the woman's hands. Ethan stopped, half hidden by the snow. "No one should go numb," Nora murmured, adjusting the tarp. "Not tonight." Ethan's throat closed. He thought of his mother, a nurse who died when he was 11, her hands always tending to the broken. Nora's quiet care echoed that spirit. He knew then he couldn't stay distant from her. Winter clamped down on Chicago, but Ethan sought the cold. It began with one night. Nora was packing leftovers when Ethan offered to help deliver. She eyed him skeptically. "You'll need a thicker coat," she said, handing him a box. From then on, they were a unit. After the kitchen closed, they walked through alleys, underpasses, and frozen parks, bringing food to those too broken to seek it. Nora knelt in the slush, placing meals with care, always meeting people's eyes. "Thank you," she'd say, even when giving. Ethan watched, struck by her gift for offering dignity, not just sustenance. One night, in a wine-swept viaduct, Ethan asked, "Why do you always look at them, even when they won't look back?" Nora paused, her breath clouding. "Because someone has to. They need to know they're still human." Her words sank into him, heavy with truth. Over weeks, their talks deepened. Nora shared fragments of her past childhood in a Humboldt Park walk-up, a father who vanished, a mother who worked doubles at a factory. Cooking had been her escape, her joy. "I've always been invisible," she said. "Maybe that's why I see others." Ethan opened up, haltingly. He spoke of losing his mother young, of a father who demanded perfection, of building walls to survive a world that prized strength over heart. His empire, he admitted, was a hollow trophy. "You've got it all," Nora said one night, her voice soft. "But maybe you're missing a home." They laughed together soon after, scrubbing pots in the kitchen. Ethan splashed water by accident, and Sophia, coloring nearby, giggled. "You're terrible at this," Nora teased. Big shock. Ethan shot back. "I usually clean up mergers, not dishes." Sophia hugged him as they left, calling him Mr. Blizzard for the mints he carried. What Ethan didn't tell Nora was what he'd done that morning. He'd found a shuttered diner for sale in the Loops Mall, brick-walled, perfect for a new start. He bought it through his foundation, picturing Nora there, her recipes on the menu, Sophia drawing chalkboard specials, the space alive with purpose. He kept it secret, but the vision burned bright. Tension simmered at work. Ethan's board, led by a skeptical CFO, Mark Hensley, questioned his recent distractions. "You're missing meetings, Ethan," Mark said one morning, his tone clipped. "This isn't like you. What's going on?" Ethan brushed it off, but the pressure mounted. His absence was noticed, his focus fraying. Whispers spread among staff rumors of burnout, or worse, a scandal. Ethan ignored them, but the strain followed him to the kitchen, where volunteers began to eye him curiously, sensing he wasn't just another helper. One evening, a volunteer named Carla called Nora. "That guy, Ethane is not who he seems," she said, her voice low. "I heard he's some big shot CEO. Why is he here?" "You trust him?" Nora's stomach twisted, but she shrugged. "He's been good to Sophia. That's what matters." Still, doubt crept in, a shadow she couldn't shake. The crisis broke on a bleak afternoon. Nora was chopping onions in the kitchen when she overheard Ethan on the phone in the hall. "The diner's purchase is locked," he said. "Call it the shelter. Keep my name out of it, Nora can't know." His assistant's voice crackled. "This is a huge investment. You sure?" Ethan's reply was firm. "She's worth it." Nora's knife hit the board, her vision blurring. Ethan called wealth name crashed into her. She'd seen it on Forbes covers, in Skyline ads, the untouchable tycoon. He'd been here, washing dishes, carrying soup, lying. She stepped into the hall as Ethan hung up. Their eyes locked. Her voice trembled, low and raw. "You lied?" He froze. "Nora, I don't," she cut him off. "You let me think I was building something, that I was enough. But I was your project, your feel-good cause." Ethan stepped closer. "You were never that. I wanted to be real with you, not the guy in the headlines." She shook her head, tears burning. "It's not about your money. It's about why you stayed. I thought I mattered, but I was just your charity case." Her voice cracked. "Don't take my pride. I don't need your pity." Ethan reached for her, but she stepped back. "Nora, please, you can't buy me," she said, ripping off her apron. "I survive without you." She walked out, the kitchen's warmth fading behind her. Ethan stood rooted, her words a blade. That night, his penthouse was a mausoleum-glass walls, designer chairs, a view of the city that felt like a void. For 5 days, he drifted through work, cancelling calls, ignoring Mark's pointed emails. He walked past the bus stop each dawn, hoping to see Sophia's small figure. It was empty. He stopped by the kitchen once, standing outside, listening for Nora's voice. Only silence answered. He tried to rationalize Ithy's plan for the shelter, his intent to help. But the truth cut deeper. He hadn't stayed for altruism. He'd stayed because Nora's resilience anchored him, because Sophia's laughter filled a hole he hadn't known was there. He'd fallen in love, and losing them left his world colorless. One night, he walked their delivery route alone, carrying a bag of meals. At the last stop, under a flickering lamp, he stood in the snow. Nora's voice echoed. "I need to feel like a person. I didn't save her." He whispered to the empty street. "She saved me." The kitchen hummed with life as volunteers prepped the evening's meals. Ethan walked in, ignoring the stares, and sat on a stool where he and Nora used to taste her recipes. The air smelled of rosemary and brotholive, grounding. He waited, silent. Nora emerged from the back, a bowl of soup in her hands. Her eyes met his, guarded but not cold. She set the bowl before him. "Eat," she said. "Extra basil. It's freezing out." Ethan reached for the spoon, then stopped. "I don't know when it started," he said, his voice low. "Maybe when you gave your last roll to a man who wouldn't look at you. Or when you laughed, even though you hadn't slept. But I stopped coming here to help. I came because I needed you." Nora's lips trembled, but she held his gaze. "I don't know how to want things I can't control," Ethan continued, "but nothing feels right anymore unless you're in it." Nora looked away, blinking hard. "Then don't leave," she said softly. "I never needed miracles. I needed someone who'd stay. Especially when it's hard." Ethan stood, stepping closer. "I'm staying, not to fix anything, but because you're what I was missing." He rested his hand on the counter. Nora placed hers over it, their fingers entwining. Behind them, Sophia peeked out, grinning. "Told you he'd come back, Mom." A year later, snow fell softly on Chicago. In the Loop, the shelter stood as a haven, a restored diner turned community hub, offering meals, training, and hope. Nora ran the kitchen, her dishes drawing locals and wanderers alike. Sophia, 7, wore a badge as Joy Captain, handing out mints to all. On opening night, the hall overflowed, residents, families. Ethan took the stage, his suit swapped for a sweater. As he reached for the mic, Sophia darted up, clutching a toy microphone. "This is my dad," she declared. "People say he's a big deal, but he's just my dad. I wished for him, and he came." The crowd laughed, some crying. Nora watched from the wings, her hand on her heart. Ethan knelt beside Sophia. "I wished for you too, kid." That Christmas Eve, they gathered in their new home near the shelter, a warm house filled with cookbooks and crayon art. Nora sliced a pecan pie. Sophia watched for lanterns, and Ethan stood close, his heart full. Outside, lanterns rose from the shelter, carrying wishes skyward. "We wished for miracles once," Nora whispered, leaning against Ethan. He smiled. "But you were mine all along." What did you think of Nora and Ethan's journey? How do you see the violence and injustice that push people like Nora and Sophia to the edges of society? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with their choices? Or do you see another path? Let's dive into this conversation.